Broads Media.
We got here. It was an interesting journey, but we sure got here. Eagles training camp. Wow, wow, wow. Now, it's not the only training camp that's getting started. Listen to this. You're not going to want to miss it. Chris Gates Fitness and his online fitness training camp is rocking and rolling. Chris is an online fitness coach and a massive football fan, and he spent summers as a kid at Eagles training camp, going to games at the Vet, and he's created a fitness community designed specifically for football fans just like me and you. If you're ready to elevate your health and fitness goals and do it with a group of like-minded people looking to support and encourage each other, you have to check this out. There's seriously so much packed into training camp. I joined and was blown away by everything you get as a member. There's customized monthly workout programs that will help you build muscle, burn fat, and feel more athletic. There's access to live question and answers with Chris, exclusive community support, and even more that will help you hold you accountable and work towards your goals. Training camp members also compete in fitness challenges each month, as well as sports challenges like weekly football pick'ems, where Chris gives out free prizes like home gym equipment, supplements, free one-on-one coaching, and more. And if you join this week, use code BROADS and you will get 80% off your first month. That's $10. $10. Don't miss out. Visit chrisgatesfitness.com/training camp. Click the link in the description and start your journey today. Do not miss out. All right, everybody. Thank you all so much and enjoy the show. Ladies and gentlemen, we did it. We made it through the worst week of the sports calendar, which is the MLB All-Star break, when there's only the home run derby, then there's only the game, and then essentially you have a few days off to figure out how to recalibrate before training camp arrives. And we did it. We got here. And there was a lot to unpack because we have been through hell together. For months, we were rightfully speculating about the relationship of the two most important people in the NovaCare complex. Well, I guess you can make the argument Jeffrey Lurie's pretty damn important, and Howie Roseman too. But in regards to a football team, the head coach and quarterback should be together like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And I did not know where exactly they stood, and we got a chance to hear from both of them. We will play the audio. I will also give my opinion on some of the notes from practice itself. So before I give my opinion on exactly what I heard, why don't we do this in chronological order? Nick Sirianni spoke first. This is what he had to say in regards to him, Jalen, and the two of them together as we have another season upon us.
You came out with a report last week that described your relationship with Jalen as a work in progress. I'm curious, entering your fourth year, how is your relationship with Jalen, and maybe how did last year test it?
You know, only thing you can judge your relationships on is your personal interactions with people, not any report that comes out. And, you know, Jalen and I's relationship is good. It's, again, you just can judge it based off of what your personal interactions are. And so when you hear a report like that, you don't put much stock into it because, quite frankly, not everybody sees that. So I'm so excited for him and I to get into our fourth year together. We've done some pretty special things, and I'm really excited for him. He's worked so hard at his game. I'm excited for him to be able to get back out here today and have a good practice today. And, yeah, just looking forward to continuing to work with him and continue to build on the special things that we've done.
I think that was a solid answer. I thought it was fine. Could it have been technically better? And saying when you see reports, I don't put too much stock into it. Instead, it's, yeah, when those reports came out, it bothered me because I love Jalen, and I think that we've done some great things over our first 3 years together. And I was a little bit taken back because, come on now. We've been to the Super Bowl together. Our first year here, we were able to go over 500 and go on the road and learn together as a first-time head coach, as a first-time quarterback, to go on the road and face a really sharp Todd Bowles-led team. Or excuse me, that might have been the team that won the damn Super Bowl, and that was Bruce Arians and Tom Brady. So for them to fall, and Todd Bowles was the defensive coordinator at the time, daring the quarterback to throw to his left, and that was an area he needed to work on in the offseason. But I'm just saying that was more my side of it, not what Nick Sirianni should say. But if he was more aggressive towards defending both of them in the relationship, maybe that would have been best. That was a take I heard after Nick spoke, and we didn't get anything from Jalen yet. And while maybe that would have been better, Nick Sirianni did not put on a shit show. That was not a disaster. It was fine. And quite frankly, I think it's honest. And what would somewhat be silly is if both of these men pretended last year was totally fine. There probably should have been controversy because, well, you guys went through a disaster together. So if there wasn't any controversy and a disaster occurred, there's almost more questions. We need to get on the same page. And there's new roles. There's a new offensive philosophy. There's a lot more on the table with Jalen in regards to pre-snap movement, things at the line of scrimmage, no Jason Kelsey, incorporating that angle to all of the new terminology and all of the new scheme that Kellen Moore is incorporating. So there's a lot here. But having that fresh slate after the offseason, maybe it does wonders. So I'm cool with the way that Nick did it. And even him saying is, look, I can only judge it by our reactions. And to a degree, he was almost not implementing, but implying that when I'm with Jalen, it's all good. He may feel differently when we're not together, but I can only base this off of when we're eye to eye, when we're face to face, when we're talking ball, when we're going over details that I feel is important and that he feels is important. It's a smooth combo. So if that's what I'm getting and that's the energy that's put in to my office when I close the door and that's what the interaction's like, I think we're Gucci. And if that's how he goes with it, I don't mind that approach from Sirianni. I also know that he's not the most comfortable, even in year 4, in front of the mic. He rambles. He talks about dinner with his kids, Fritos with the taco soup. Sometimes he vomits out the mouth. Now, he's way more polished now, believe it or not, than when he got things started. I'll never forget the most iconic quote of all time with the press conference of being prepared is knowing what to do. Yeah, no shit, Nick. Being prepared is knowing what to do. I'm like, oh, this is the guy that's going to lead the team. Thanks, Nick. I'm glad you gave us that. Now that we got to know Nick a little more, yeah. He's a little nervous at the time. It is what it is. So this version is more polished, but he's still Nick. And for this to get, or for us to get this in a highly anticipated response with a ton of pressure on Nick to say the right things, and he was prepped for it. So maybe he was trying to dive deep into that brain of his and come up with the statement that he prepared himself for, or what the PR team told him to say, along with Howie Roseman, who was sitting right beside him, saying, I'll take questions, I'll do this, I'll do that, taking heat off the head coach and holding his hand so he can go off on a tangent and describe Cooper DeJean and the disappointment of his injury, or just the nature of maybe the coaching staff now. And I got to give Howie some credit. I do think that he laid it out. Once again, whether it's lip service or not, if I'm going to crush them heavily for the disaster at the OTAs and for everything to be all over the map, and I want Jalen to lie and make it seem like him and Nick are good, and I prefer lying to our faces so you're selling a better product to the fans and the morale feels better compared to the alternative, which is something's wrong, and then we speculate for 4 months, then if they give me lip service, I won't complain because I demanded to have that compared to showing big flashing red alert signs that something's wrong here, something's bad here, something's garbage here. So there was actually a response by Howie about drafting Quinyon Mitchell. And yes, he went to Toledo. And yes, Nick is very close with someone at Toledo. So when you pass along that information and talk about Quinyon Mitchell with one another, that's important to know. Yeah, I got guys there. This is what they say. Let's collectively work as a unit. And Howie made it clear that we liked Quinyon Mitchell anyway. This was almost an added bonus, an added conversation, some more comfort, some almost a definite lock, if you will, of, oh yeah, that's just putting the nail in it. That's putting the nail in the coffin. That's securing it of something we already know, but that's even more now. We thought it was a lock prior. Now it's even more of a lock. But because they talk about things, and when it comes to hiring the coordinators, whether Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie were so pissed off because, well, Diana Rossini recently put out a little piece on her Athletic podcast about it being the Nick Sirianni show, and that's why there was turmoil, which is not surprising any of us by any means. Yeah, trust me, we've been digging. We've been having the shovels going 55 feet under the ground looking for this since the day the season ended, and we watched everything go down. So nationally, maybe it was more eye-popping and more appealing to some of the teams or some of the fans that look at teams with a 1,000-foot view instead of in the thick of the emotions. But for us, none of that was new information. So whether Howie and Lurie said this is what you have to work with to save your job, you are taking our coordinators, or there's truth to, similar to them drafting Quinyon Mitchell, hey, I got some info, this is what I'm feeling, and then with Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio, very high-profile guys, Howie Roseman said, hey, we're very interested in these guys. What do you think? He goes, oh, yeah, I mean, Kellen Moore, look at what he did in Dallas. Oh, Vic Fangio, the guy's been in the league longer than Broads has been alive. Of course, I'd be interested in that. Now, if Nick actually had the balls to say no thank you to Kellen Moore or Vic Fangio, that's a totally different discussion. He might have been the yes man puppet anyway, that we know his role kind of is. Once again, it's about, one, I actually like the answer, and if that is true, that's good. Do I think it's as positive as he's laying out, as open floor dialogue as Howie's laying it out? No. Howie's a pro at this, has been here for a long time, and he's selling a product. But I want them to sell a product, even if it isn't the same behind closed doors, because that's how things stay in line. And I'm talking about with public perception, and when people sniff that something's brewing in the wrong direction. The more you pretend things are well, the more you have the opportunity maybe to get your hands on things behind the scenes and to fix it the best that you possibly can given the cards that you were dealt, if that makes sense. So that's my opinion on the Nick Sirianni front. Here's Jalen Hurts, who ended up almost somewhat making a statement. So a question came in from the reporters, and he goes, yeah. Let me say something here to a degree. All right, here's Jalen.
All the opportunity we had last year, I know everybody's hungry. Everybody's hungry. There's a ton of opportunity in front of us this year. I'm excited to be back, excited to go through this journey and go through this season with everyone here, from everyone. And I truly trust trust Mr. Leary, I trust Howie, I trust Coach Sirianni to lead us in that right direction. And I know there are different roles in place. Everybody has different responsibilities. They may be more demands from some than others, but I think to win championships, to be the team we want to be, everyone has to buy into that role, and everyone has to, really be fully committed to doing their part and helping the team. And so I'm excited to go on that journey. I feel like for me as a player, as a leader, everything that we went through last year, I just feel like I'm equipped to handle whatever's to come. And so I'm excited to, forge whatever this year's supposed to be. Yeah, I think we're in a great place. I think anytime you have any frustration, anytime you have any adversity that you have to overcome, it's supposed to test you. And I think it's a matter of being on the same page. And I think if we are on the same page, we maybe would accomplish the things we would have, and we didn't. But that's a learning experience.
I like it. I really do. I think it's authentic. I think it's real. There were some problems last season, and we have to learn from that, right? It's not about now doubling down and saying, I still have all of these issues with Nick that, I'm going to allow to impact me for this upcoming year. I got paid a lot of money. I got paid a big contract. I'm tied at the hip with Nick. Look, if Nick goes, that means the offense wasn't good. And if the offense isn't good, that means I'm in question now. So I got to put my head on straight. And once again, similar to what I was saying with Nick, I don't expect Jalen to say this, but this might be his mentality when he's trying to do what's best for himself and the football team, looking at what do I do now, considering I am in this situation, and I am the leader of the franchise. I am the commander when it comes to the football field, and everybody's looking at me. So this can go one of two ways. I can either let this spiral even more so and continue to cause all sorts of drama by making certain remarks publicly, like I did at the OTAs, and give silly, stupid answers, which is a very easy controllable, right? Or this is what occurred. We all have new roles. We got to learn from last year, and let's go. I'm all in for picking apart press conferences with the best of them. I'd spend a lot of time giving my thoughts on X, Y, and Z. What did he mean here? Was he being secretive there? Was that mentioned for a reason? Similar to the whole role thing. Everyone's got a new role you got to be committed to. Is that him almost saying, Nick, Nick, you better stay out of this offense? Nick, and look, I could do that, but I'd be lying if I said that it hit me that way. I think Jalen's being genuine. I think Nick is being genuine. And quite frankly, it's easy to be genuine on this day. It's beautiful. Football's back. You've been waiting forever to close the chapter. You can turn the new page when you take the field again for training camp. Sure, as soon as the Super Bowl is over, it's technically heading into the offseason with the draft and acquiring talent and Howie season and free agencies and figure out all sorts of trades. Hassan Reddick, the New York Jets, Bryce Huff, all that stuff. Reality is, now it really hits different that it's the following year. Time will tell when they have to play the games and adversity hits for real, for real. But in regards to assessing where we currently stand with last year in the rearview mirror and still fresh, I mean, it's a fresh wound for me. It doesn't go away automatically. Every time I see Nick, my first thought is the collapse. And then I say, okay, hold on, let me put that behind me for a second. I won't allow that to always ruin my judgment, even though I do, but I won't. Or at least I'll try my very best. So it is still fresh. Maybe in 30 years it won't be. I highly doubt it. I'll be telling my grandkids about this collapse. Oh, you don't know about the 23 team following the 2022 Super Bowl loss. Based off of where we are now, though, there were a lot of eyeballs set on these two men. They were prepped and prepared for the first questions to be about the togetherness and how much they are in lockstep with one another. And knowing that, if you told me this would have been the outcome prior to hearing them both speak, I would have said, 2 thumbs up, fellas. You did your job. You did your job today. And now we'll see where it takes us. So those are my thoughts from a press conference standpoint. And it's pretty rare that with them taking the field and maybe looking at who's going to play over on the opposite side of Darius Slay first, or how are the linebackers set up with Nakobe Dean, or whatever the case may be, that the press conferences hold this much weight. It's rare. But this is reality. So now let's get to what actually happened on the practice field. There were a lot of media members throughout OTAs that would bring up, rough one for Jalen. Not a good throw by Jalen. Looks like an interception from Jalen, turning the ball over. Didn't seem to be the case for day one of training camp here. Apparently he looked pretty well. Apparently he looked pretty damn well. Not insanely tested. Not crazy stuff, but crazy stuff isn't happening in OTAs either. So this is all being judged on a scale of it being training camp and not the same training camp as back in the 90s and the pads and popping guys and bringing them down to the ground. But he still made some important throws. We saw some pre-snap movement. We saw a dime to Dallas Goedert. And I really hope that we see that next stride in Dallas Goedert's game this season. There's a lot of skill position players to pass the ball around. Seeing Saquon Barkley was interesting just in the green jersey. You know, it's going to take a little bit of time to get used to that. If I'm being 1,000% transparent with everyone, it might even take a few games. I have no idea. It might even take half the season. It might even take until the first game against New York in the Meadows, in the Meadowlands. It might even take, I don't even know, a couple of years until it's reality smack me in the face. Yeah, that's right, Saquon Barkley, he's going to have 3 touchdowns and 120 yards in a game, and then he'll also have 30 yards receiving, so 150-yard day at the office. And I go, oh, yeah, okay, now I got, now, oh, yeah, now, oh, yeah, okay, oh, yeah, all right, yeah, now it feels right. Oh, it's going to be good stuff. But, yeah, I mean, apparently his best throw of the day came to the tight end, and that makes me happy considering I'm looking at the tight end to have a nice season here for the Eagles. Not that he hasn't had nice seasons in the past, but I always thought it was a little strange when they drafted him. He was the number 2 tight end. Zach Ertz was still here. He's an all-time franchise guy. He definitely gets more of an emphasis, and then they run 12 personnel sets, and that's a different offense than having a couple of wide receivers out there with you as the tight end, and also, just something to keep an eye out for. So there's that. Staying along the offense here, Paris Campbell, there's a lot of eyes on the 3rd wide receiver spot. Maybe he takes it. Maybe he takes that opportunity and runs with it, but that's definitely a name to look at for. Another name is what? John Ross. They picked him up at some point there in the offseason, and there's some other names flirting around in the competition, and I'll use air quotes there because I don't know how much they have a shot to crack a 3rd wide receiver role. But as for now, we will take a look at Paris Campbell as the leader of the crew and see where it takes us. The offensive line, Tyler Steen at right guard. There were some rumors and discussions about maybe Mekhi Becton sliding in and trying to save his NFL career. And maybe there was once a time where he wasn't willing to play guard and he viewed himself as a tackle and a tackle only. He thought of himself very highly and was not willing to move inside and play any other position than what the New York Jets thought that he could be at the time of him, becoming a New York Jet. But reality is your job is on life support. Your NFL lifeline is real, and you get 60,000 people screaming for you and screaming for the Eagles and being very passionate and loud, and you can't let that escape you, my man. There's not many people that get to do this, so you better find a way to perform inside and compete and because Landon Dickerson had a toe laceration, which I'm not sure if that was because he was participating with slip and slides in his yard and he's having all sorts of crazy, pictures being blasted on social media, him not too long ago flying on his chest full speed in the grass, and something happened there. Because he was unable to go and unable to participate, Mekhi Becton played left guard and was apparently throwing up all practice long. Now, maybe it's just because it's sticky and hot. Maybe it's because he's not prepared. I don't know. But in this era of football, to be hacking and heaving nonstop and for liquids to be flying out on the sidelines day one of camp, probably not the best idea, right? Now, if it was John Tortorella in the Flyers training camp, and he always makes it very clear, I don't even care how bad it looks. I don't care if you throw up 1,000 times. I don't care if you come in last place. I don't care if it looks like you're dogging it, but you're not. You just have 0 left in the tank. Just finish. Finish. So if you throw up then, Torts might even smack you on the ass and say, good job, kid. You might even get more love for battling through and powering through. I don't know. I wasn't there, and I didn't see the quality of it all. But just reading it and seeing Mekhi Becton's out there yakking out of his ass on a day where, how much are they really doing compared to days where they used to actually have to throw on the pads and do something? Probably not the strongest look that you're out there throwing up. But Tyler Steen at right guard is in the front of the line for the time being. Defensively, Bradbury's second-team safety. The Bradbury thing's interesting. I remember, even throughout his downtime and how bad he was playing, guy's a pro. He's a pro. Listen to him speak. He's a serious pro. And while he was burnt last year, I don't know if he's as bad as he was last year, and I don't know if he's as good as he was the year before when the defensive line was getting a ton of pressure and logging in 70 sacks. Like, that's a huge deal, right? That's going to impact your secondary, and guys will shine because there's less time for the quarterback to sit in the pocket and pick apart and dice apart your defense, right? It's just how it goes. It's a cause and an effect. You end up getting to the QB, and there's less time for these routes to develop, and you can jump plays if you're C.J. Gardner-Johnson to get a ton of interceptions, or you can do a good job at clamping somebody down if you're James Bradbury. So I don't think he's as good as he was in 22. I don't think he's bad as he is in 23. Regardless, the Eagles seem to be throwing him around at that safety spot, and maybe they dangled him in a way in the offseason to see if there were any takers, and maybe it didn't pan out. Here's what I'll say, though. Losing Kelsey and Fletcher Cox, I do like the idea of having a voice like that in Bradbury, regardless on how well he plays or how bad he is or whatever. I do think that young guys, Quinyon Mitchell or Cooper DeJean or any of these other young cats, see James Bradbury and what he's done in his career and goes, I look up to that. There's an importance in that voice when you are limited in the amount of veteran voices in there, even with the current state of James Bradbury. And for him to almost swallow his pride and say, like, all right, listen, second team, like, this is what I am right now, and this is where I'm at, and maybe I'm a safety, and let's go at it. Regardless of what's happening behind closed doors, once again, it's all about public perception. And from my knowledge and just looking into the Eagles organization right now, it seems like he's like, this is where I'm at, and let's go, and I can still be an addition to this roster and to this team, and let's see where it all goes from here. So I like it from a veteran leadership standpoint, and we'll see how things shake out with Howie Roseman and the cap and money and all of it. I can only go off of where we stand today. They love Baun. Love Baun. Baun better be a sensational linebacker. They love him. Him and Devin White getting the fresh nod early at the linebacker position. I'm just saying, this kid better be insanity. Because the way they talk about him and hearing Vic Fangio talk about him, and just saying, quite frankly, I don't know if they have many other options, right? I'm not a huge believer in Nakobe Dean and his size currently and being able to stay upright for a season. And Jeremiah Trotter Jr. is such a prospect and is so raw that there's so much to learn still at his fresh age. So there's probably not much else you can do. So maybe it's a desperation move more than anything else. But if it's a desperation move, then do better. Like if Baun's not good enough, and we'll see, but if he's not good enough and you go, well, we had nothing else to do, this was our best possible guy, well, then get a better possible guy. That's the job. And who knows? Maybe Howie Roseman does eventually do that. Pick up a random name that once had some pop in this league, whether it's the Zach Cunningham thing or it's another linebacker. Some of them don't work. They tried the Shaq Leonard thing, rejuvenate your career. The Indianapolis Colts somewhat surprised you and backstabbed you, and you think you got more left in the tank to prove. But the second Shaq Leonard said that I'm not doing this to prove to the Colts anything, I'm doing this to prove it to myself. Well, if you're doubting yourself that much to see what's left in the tank, then you probably don't have enough left in the tank. And I was right with that assessment because he was a stiff. A stiff. Byard was a stiff too, though, just thinking about some other names you attempted last season. Anyway, I digress. There's the linebacker stuff. And Isaiah Rodgers opposite of Slay with Avonte in the slot. They're going to throw around a ton of different concepts. They're going to give you different looks. All right, we got a while until real games are played. So if you're going to take anything out of these first looks, then okay. But these are just our first looks, and a lot can change, as we see with Cooper DeJean getting injured. And now he's missing some valuable time for a young player. It's a lot to learn, and especially a Swiss Army knife type of role where you can do so much and have a ton of versatility. To miss a few weeks to kick things off, it sucks because there was some excitement and some juice for him, his character, his personality. There was some swag involved. There was a toughness about the way that he was willing to play the game, and for him to not be available, we're also dealing with the Sidney Brown injury from last year and him recovering to get back on his feet, although we kind of understood what his timeline would be and where he would be at this particular time of the season. There was an energy that those two brought, and for Cooper DeJean to miss some time here, it's very valuable for a young player to get these snaps and to get this knowledge, and mental reps can only take you so far. You got to be out there and actually running and making plays and attempting certain things. So it kind of stinks, for whatever that's worth. All right, everybody, those are my thoughts as day one of training camp is wrapped up. Thank you all so much for listening. First day of taking the field, that is. Thank you so much for listening. Appreciate the love and support, and I'll catch you all on the next one.